Wanted to start a conversation about board nominations and the election process. Who's already started thinking about that for next year? All right, a couple of you. Cool. Okay. So, are you familiar with what's in your bylaws or what is, I see a couple head nods. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, Crystal, what I found interesting, Bruce and I were just having a talk this morning, that we heard from a past board member that he doesn't join the board again because the board's not functioning well. And he felt like it needed better functioning. So Bruce and I put a campaign together this year. We're really getting the board organized to be functional, that actually do a good job for the association. And so that's certainly a consideration as they think about new people, trying to encourage new people. They want to work with a board that does things, that gets things accomplished.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that obviously affects many, many things, but certainly you want to have a organizational body that people want to belong to and contribute to, for sure. How are you finding, recruiting, asking for people to run for the board?
Are you asking that specifically of Bruce and their chapter?
No, I'm asking of
Okay.
anybody. Thank you for
So
that clarification.
you're welcome, Ms. Crystal. This is Wendy. I'm the president of the Baseline chapter. Terry was kind enough to put all that in the chat because I apparently can't figure it out on my phone. We always have an abundance of people that want to run from our board and significant competition, I guess I would say. So we put in established criteria like of certain metrics you had to meet so that you had to be on a committee or you had to have either published or spoken or had a committee. Like we have all these criterias which allowed it to have more succession planning, meaning that when people came into the chapter, they can join any committee, they can get involved, and that helped. And then in addition to that, like Terry and I talked about who we felt might be the best president-elect of our current board members and have reached out to that person to ask them to consider nominating themselves for that position. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And then ultimately the positions obviously are the board vote, but who gets elected, we have no shortage of people who self-nominate and they write something about themselves and provided they met the criteria, we have a pretty large slate that goes out to our membership.
That's amazing. That's great to have. Who has that same issue of having an overabundance of people? Who has the opposite?
So,
And
so in
it's
Michigan,
okay if you do, because you're not alone, trust me.
yeah, in Michigan, our elections are handled differently than that. So
Okay,
people, you have to put into the nominating committee, and the nominating committee only nominates one person per position.
got
And
it.
then if they want to get on the board, and I did this, you have to get a petition of the membership, a certain number, to be added out for a vote.
Okay. So the difference
So,
there, just so everybody's clear, is so what Wendy was describing is an election. So anybody
mhm,
that meets the qualifications, the nominating committee is putting all of those people on the ballot, and the membership probably votes for so many business partners, so many homeowners, so many
mhm.
managers to keep that balance. What Shannon is saying is a slate that they operate under. And our chapters are probably pretty split, and we have a choice in our bylaws. So the slate is just picking one person per open slot and saying, here is what we think. Do you approve or don't you approve of this group?
Does that
And
does
I
that turn into a good old boys club after a while?
it
Yes,
can it
Oh,
can
Shannon is
uh
saying yes, that's interesting. Okay.
yes.
and I
We've
would and I
we've had some changes in our chapter, but it was yes, that was a big problem. Is you had the same people from the same companies. Um, we have a new CED who's been amazing and is actually like enforcing the term limits and and things like that. But no, it was there was there was a huge perception of that, and I think the perception was the reality. But it also, with that changing, we've seen our chapter has grown because we had a lot of people that were like, I don't want anything to do with that. So,
Wendy, am I correct that, or Terry, either of you, that you changed, right, from a slate
Cal North,
to
Crystal, you're thinking of Cal North.
No,
I'm
we
thinking
did.
of Cal North.
Basin did it too.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Basin
and I
did it
think
too.
yeah, and see, I wasn't back when I was on the board of Cal North. You did a slate, and then you could petition the slate at the meeting, like if you didn't make the slate. But most often the slate was elected. But okay, so back before I was on the board of Basin, I guess we did that too. But it's been, I think, in both sister chapters, widely appreciated that we moved to a popular vote, and we get like hundreds of people actually vote, so it's nice. It's not,
Oh,
I mean,
that's good.
people are always going to have a complaint that it feels like a popularity contest, but if you have metrics that you can put into place that say you have to meet this criteria, it does help because it does balance out the play. So
I'd like
just my
to
opinion.
add to it did used to be a slate, and there were some inherent issues with how that was set up, and it kind of was a good old boys club, like Shannon was saying. So we switched to an election, but also we needed to review the eligibility requirements because there were some people that were super involved in the chapter. They were all over the committees, they were chairs of the committees, but there was literally no way for them to ever meet the eligibility requirements because of the way they were set up and because of the position they held in their company. It was impossible. So we figured that out and realized how unfair it was, and that those are the exact types of people we wanted on the board. So we had to revise our eligibility, and I think it's worked really well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, with the eligibility requirements, I would recommend you really take care in looking at those because sometimes you're trying to fix a one-off situation and you're
Yeah.
not thinking far enough into the future of what you're going to need, and then you limit people, right? So, being really thoughtful about what makes sense.
Yes, we've made it. Oh, I was just gonna say we've made it now like an either or as opposed to a checklist. In the
Got it.
past, it was a checklist of like you had to fill all of these requirements. And it's kind of funny because at this point, our board, everyone on the board would actually have in the past met, but that isn't always the case. We have incredible volunteers. And so now it's an either or. You have to have served on a committee or spoken or written. So there's like instead of all of them. And I think that really broadened our candidate space.
Great.
And I was
Is
going
there-
to share your chapter or executive directors on Monday had a sharing call similar to this, and they discussed deeply some of these requirements, what chapters we're doing. So don't be surprised if any of your chapter executive directors bring some recommendations. But if any of you have any questions against that, again, please connect with your executive directors because they have samples. They've already kind of discussed different ways chapters are doing it that might be beneficial for, moving forward with you all as well. So just wanted to give you that heads up.
They shared ideas amongst themselves so the ED has a collection of things to look at.
Yep.
Great.
Absolutely. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, they have a similar call to what we have here with the presidents, with the executive directors. So one thing when you are making those changes to requirements, or if you're thinking, gosh, that open election sounds better than a slate or vice versa, remember that's part of your bylaws. So it's not just something you can change tomorrow. Make sure you look at your bylaws, see what the requirements are to make those changes. And because when you look at your bylaws, which I strongly recommend you do in the next 30 to 60 days before you start the election process, it's very particular on giving notice that there's going to be an election, when you send out for nominations, when you send out the ballot, and when you actually hold the election based on your annual meeting requirements. I would bet every single chapter has that. So in thinking through those timelines, you may or may not be able to make a change for this coming election that is likely going to happen this fall. So if you are seriously thinking, gosh, I wish we had more qualifications in place, or I'd like to consider this other option, you probably are going to want to look at that sooner rather than later. Or just know that this year will be the transition year and you'll look at that for next year. So just want to point that out.
Yeah, so our terms are different because our terms start July 1st. So we don't have
Got it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So does anybody have a situation where the apathy has been taken care of? Because I noticed that we saw that several years ago. I forget if it was Tom Skiba, I'm pretty sure it was him that put out a message to the board at the national level saying, let's work on a campaign to get rid of the apathy we have. People don't vote like they should. And we tried this encouraging thing to get them all to vote. Has anybody solved that problem where you have the apathy kind of taken care of and people are actually voting?
I think it really varies chapter to chapter. From speaking from a national level, it's because it's such a large audience. The larger the audience, everybody thinks somebody else is doing it, right? But I'll give you a good example of something that just happened a couple of hours ago that I think is going to be a game changer for us as far as nominations and voting. Is we decided we have our council positions coming up for self-nominations. They're due, I think, next week. And we held an information session today with the council chairs or representatives to share what it's like to be on a council, what do you need to know, what are the requirements, et cetera. And we had um, like 50 people on there and like 165 registered. And this was all done within a week. So it probably could have been even more expansive. So, sometimes I think people in those elections don't really understand, number one, why they're voting, why they should serve, or if anybody even cares that they're interested. It goes back to anytime with a volunteer, being asked by a peer makes a great deal of difference. So you as a leader and other leaders in the chapter, if you recognize people that you believe have potential, starting them down that path sooner rather than later is ideal. Serving on a committee, writing an article, becoming a chair, all of those things, even if those aren't specific requirements, that's going to prepare them to serve as a leader. All right. Terry put in the chat about homeowners, and I know we are great this year. We've got some amazing homeowners here on this call serving as leaders, and that is not always the case. So I'm super excited that we have all of you here, and maybe you can shed some light because that is a struggle that many of our chapters have is getting homeowners engaged just specifically at the board level. So I don't know if any of our homeowners here wanna share their secret sauce or
Well, I'll tell you, my secret sauce was one of the presidents, Sarah Marie, just came up to me one day and said, Jeanette, you have great leadership. You talk to everybody at the meetings, at all of our luncheons. We want you on the board. And I was kind of drawn in, kind of just, bam. And as a Cavill, I'm thinking, why do I need to do this? I don't have anything behind my name. I don't have a PCAM or anything. I mean, I'm just little old me. And I enjoy, working on the board. And then all of a sudden the CAI board came up and I took the position and was popped right into treasury because Jeanette, you're great with numbers. And I thought, okay, I tried and just kind of succeeded to going up the line. So it wasn't anything that I looked at coming into CAI. I wanted to learn as the president of the HOA that I was involved with. And so that helped me immensely. And even now, as the president, I was thrown in at the 6 month level. So we had someone resign. Our president resigned, so I was president elect. So I already have that on my plate for the next 6 months as well as the next year. But it was just one of those happenstance things. So I
yeah,
think
but somebody reached out to you, like I was just
yes.
saying, and saw that there was, leadership there, and drew you in that way. So that's
But it
great.
would be hard to get Cavils to understand that It's fun, it's exciting, you learn a lot. It's amazing when you're involved more than just coming to a luncheon and sitting there and listening to everybody, but you're really involved in planning those things that mean something to you or that you can learn from even. You can give out the subject or, say, I want to hear about this. And it's more interesting to you as a Cavill than I think as a business partner or even a manager because they know a lot of stuff already. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I learned everything that I know from being on the board.
I bet you also met a lot of professionals that you would have not
Yeah.
otherwise met.
And it's funny because I've had occasion to use three business partners personally from
Yeah,
from CAI.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah.
That's great.
I'll
Any other?
say a few. I'll say a
Go
few
ahead,
words,
George.
George. Yes, having trouble with the video, but so I got involved through CAI. I found out about CAI. I attended my first event by driving 90 minutes from home, and I joined the same day. And I was very involved my first year as a member. And following year, I was asked if I wanted to become a member of the board of directors. And so here I am, fast forward, and I had no inkling of becoming a member of the board of directors. I was asked, and this goes back to the point where we're talking a few moments ago about getting new board members on board to become uh, leaders of the chapter. I think when you're asked to become a member of the board, or would you like to consider becoming a member of the board of directors, I not because it happened to me or Jeanette or anybody else, but I think that says something about the individual itself as opposed to self-nominating. And we also would like to have in my chapter individuals who have served as committee chairperson. So we have a succession planning going forward. Um, and so that's where I am, and I'm happy to be here. And I
Awesome.
enjoy. And as a homeowner leader, I think we bring something different to the table, obviously, than a business partner. Because if you think about it, the homeowner leaders, the members of the local HOA or COA, they're the ones that are uh, seeking proposals, putting together RFPs. They're hiring these companies here. So there's really a lot of input, and we play a huge part. And I'm also happy to say that our chapter does have one third, one third, one third across the board, which mirrors national. It is difficult though to get homeowner leaders to come to some of the breakfast seminars, and I think we would like to strive to get more homeowner leaders, board of directors, committee chairpersons, as well as CAMs to come. Business partners will always show up, and I think it's probably very common across the board. So
Yes,
thank you very much.
that's great. One thing as you were talking that I thought about, George, is, as you were talking about the importance of the homeowner voice, absolutely 100%. And that's why we have people reach out and say, I don't understand why I can't have more managers or more business partners or more homeowners even on our board. Why am I limited to the number that I can have? It's because that's what CAI is. We're representing the industry as a whole, and all of those voices have an important role in what we do. One common thing that happens often is what happens when you can't fill the homeowner seat. You don't have anybody that's willing to step up. What have you all done in the past to manage that seat? Anybody? Or you want me to share what I
We've
think?
gone we've gone without a board member.
Yeah, same.
I
Yeah.
mean, we had a Cavill. She was fantastic. She had some health issues and had to resign, and we didn't fill her seat for the rest of it. Kind of, we do have Cavills that are involved in our committees, and so kind of put some feelers out that way, and asked a couple of them if they would be willing to step up. And we had one that did, and they ended up, doing that. But we've had to leave that seat empty a couple times.
Okay.
So
That would be the recommendation from us. some chapters through, I think it's natural, have said, Terry, you're the one next to me on the screen. Terry's a business partner, but she also lives in an HOA, so she can be the homeowner. Um, that is not the intent. And I know it's well-meaning, and I'm sure Terry loves her homeowners association, but her primary focus is the business that she's representing. So it's not quite the same, than someone who is not working in the profession. And so that's what we're looking for, is not somebody to serve in a dual role, but somebody who truly has the leadership experience from, a homeowners association to bring that in. So if you struggle with that, we would rather you keep the position open, and continue to actively look to fill that position, by reaching out to those homeowners that are attending your events or participating in your committees, et cetera.
Crystal,
Go ahead.
Wendy, go ahead.
I have an interesting question about something you just stated, because it has come
Sure.
up in our chapter, which is we've had people that have been on the board in homeowner leader capacities or management manager members, like their primary member affiliation was homeowner leader or manager, but then they switched to a business partner, or they started a business, but would only they continue to renew under their primary member. It felt like it was less expensive than the business partner, and it allowed them to run in a less competitive fashion or stay on the board in a less competitive fashion. And
Right.
In full disclosure, I know we've talked to you and Kelly about it. We were getting to a place where we didn't know what to do with one member and then of the board, and then they moved and they've left, so it was easy. But that is a challenge, because you can have a respected board member and volunteer, but when they're truly acting in a different capacity than their primary membership, that became an issue on our board. I don't know if anyone else has ever faced that.
Yeah, I tell like you said, we've discussed this before, but it's a good question to talk with everybody about. Is um first, if anybody changes positions in their, from a manager to a business partner, or is no longer in the business but joins as a homeowner, you should really look at your bylaws to see, if that person is still able to stay on the board. And sometimes it's a matter of, do we have enough space for that number in that category? Or is there somebody else from that organization already serving on the board? So, most of the bylaws have something that says you can't have more than one person from any one company or an association. So that's one thing there. But in this position, this situation that you're talking about, Wendy, um, it's not spelled out as clearly as I would like in the model chapter bylaws, which, FYI, if you don't know, you have your chapter bylaws, but all of you have developed your bylaws from our model that has required language. It has some optional pieces and some flexible pieces. Optional meaning you can have it or not, different provisions. Flexible means you have to have some way of getting new board members, but you can have a slate or you can have an election. So in our model bylaws, I don't think the scenario that you shared is as clear as I would like it to be. We're almost finished with a national bylaws revision, and we're going to filter that down to the chapters. How I, in my mind, keep it is, wherever somebody is making their living is where their loyalty is going to be. So if I'm a homeowner and I decide I'm going to start a business that is actively seeking business through community associations, my livelihood is what's going to be my primary membership. So you can join in whatever category you want, but if you're working in the business, you should not be running for that lower category. So we're going to tighten that up in our bylaws, but that's the intent there, is where can you really represent yourself? And,
Mhm.
because there might be some of you on this call that are homeowners that have been managers and that are now business partners, but you can't play all three at the same time. So, it's just too
Crystal,
difficult.
you mentioned that you did like a town hall meeting recently, the last day or so, at the national level.
Yeah, earlier today. Yep.
Yeah, is that a recommendation that we could follow up on? Also, I could see that, Bruce. We have to get off the call real quick. We have another call coming up at 11 o'clock, but
Sure.
I really wanted to hear that maybe we should hold a town hall meeting for all those who might be interested in being in leadership at CAI.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Like I said, this is the first time we've done it, and it was an idea that came up last week, and we were like, let's just see if anybody comes. And we got a pretty good response rate. I think that would be fantastic for people to do, because even if Vicky isn't interested in doing it today, maybe in 3 years, she's like, oh, I might have more time then. So let me just learn about what that would mean now, So hopefully you're building a pipeline for the future. I think it's a great idea to do.
I do
It
too.
was very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, Joyce, yeah, you were on it? Yeah,
Yes,
good.
Wow, I'm sorry I missed it, guys.
We did record it, so we can
it's
certainly share
recorded.
it.
Okay.
If people are interested in seeing, what it's like on the national level, because now that you've risen to president, you might want to explore national leadership at a later time. So we can share that with you, and also for the chapter uses as well, to just kind of see what we did and, take it and make it
And
your own.
just real quick, I caught that you were talking about the membership types in our chapters, correct? Like, is that what you were talking about? I caught
We
that
were
I came in after the discussion.
No, that's okay. No worries, Dana. We're talking about elections and nominations and
Uh-huh.
requirements around what
Right.
types to be that can be elected. So if you are a manager and a homeowner, you should be running in your manager category versus a homeowner category because that's
Correct.
where you're earning money in the profession, and that's where your loyalty likely lies in your thought process in representing. So because sometimes people, because it is a little easier sometimes to get in on that homeowner slot, but it's not really filling the intention. And as we can see from all the homeowner leaders we have on this call, you bring a very unique perspective to our conversations, and it's very valued.
Well, I agree on that, with you on that, with the membership type for like nominations and filling the criteria for your board, even for our nominating committee, that they're actually, and you have a good example with me. I'm the president of my HOA.
Mhm.
I'm the secretary of the Civic Association. I'm a business partner for CAI, and I'm a CAM member. But I'm going to now remove my CAM membership. I just do it because I like to give you, keep that for you guys. But
Sure.
and just because the business partner is the one I am actually in, and that's what I ran on was business partner because
Exactly.
I make my money with my business. And so I agree with
Yeah.
you, and I know that there has been angst on that in many chapters because I was involved with many chapters when I worked as a business partner with law firms. And I would say I just stayed quiet, but I understood the angst of some people because, I just because I'm the president of my board doesn't make me eligible to be the homeowner leader. So I understand that.
Yep.
I give kudos to our homeowner leaders that is all they do. They're not a business partner. They're just homeowner leaders and they're very actively involved with CAI and get their boards to understand that. That's very commendable. So I could never get my board to pay for anything with CAI. So that's wonderful.
Unfortunate.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the nominating committee. In your bylaws, it likely has laid out the people, the basic people, the primary people that should be serving on that. It's usually the president-elect, and I'm drawing a blank on who else is on there, but
Immediate past president.
immediate past president, thank you. And I believe it also says that you should have representation from each of those member type groups.
Correct. Mhm.
So that's one thing to also be looking ahead to. When you're thinking about your nominating committee, while their work is typically a very short term, leading up to the election. It's extremely important because they're picking the leadership for the future of the organization. And so making sure that you actively select people that can serve in that role. Obviously, they should not be also running for a position. They cannot serve if they are running. So you need to check that too. If your president-elect is I never want your president-elect up for reelection. Your immediate past president is running for election again. They shouldn't be serving. You're going to have to fill that with somebody else. So that's why it's important to look at that early. And making sure that that committee is not just a checkbox to say, oh, we have 5 spots. We've got 5 bodies. So here you go. It's really, you really want that group to be thoughtful about the leadership for the future. Are you all using your nominating committees to, vet for the requirements and things like that?
Yes.
Okay.
I
I'm
think,
assuming your staff probably does a general check of
yeah,
like,
I think for us, like
members
Lisa does most
exactly.
of our stuff, like, and kind of we'll put out feelers with different people. Hey, we've got this position open. Do you think you'd be interested? Kind of a thing. I know, like I've had previously had like some concerns with some of the people on our nominating committee. I was like, they don't come to anything. They go to the conference, so they don't know anybody. They don't know who's involved. They don't,
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that we're going to be talking about coming up is like, okay, what changes need to be made?
Yeah.
Because it's important that again, we don't want to get into like a good old boy thing. And it's important that the
Absolutely.
people that are making those decisions are involved in the chapter, not just showing up. They're obviously all members, but not just showing up for the conference. That they go to different educational events, they go to different social events and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Diana?
Yes, I agree with Shannon, and I was going to, so I echo what you just said, Shannon, that yes, what we did was we make sure that anyone that's on the nominating committee, so for example, I discussed it with my chapter executive director in advance. We look at who we both see everywhere, not everywhere, sorry, at events, supporting the chapter, getting to know people. So we kind of look at that for the nominating committee for those exact reasons, because that way they have more of an idea. Have they met them? Do they know them? And then, of course, we then look at our criteria, the point we kind of implemented, which we discussed, I think, a couple of meetings ago, that some of us do that.
Right. All right. What other questions do you guys have about the nominating committee or elections? Have I prompted, through my questions, any other things that you're curious about?
Would you, I wouldn't mind sharing real quick for you, Crystal, and for everyone here that our chapter does, and I'm sure yours does this as well, but our chapter also has, once the slate is selected, the nominating committee has selected the slate based on the criteria, then we have an open call so that any members that would like to nominate themselves can as well. And so we send that out. I think it's like 45 days before election. Don't quote me. I haven't looked at the bylaws since a month or two ago on the election stuff. But so that's how anyone in the chapter that feels they'd like to be nominated, or they can nominate themselves or someone can nominate them. And then our CED would then ask to see if they're even interested or share some of the criteria. Like, for example, we like to let our board members know that our chapter does ask them to be at all the meetings. And we hold our meetings on Zoom, and that's you really need to be at the meetings. You have to be present to be on the board. And just same with our committee chairs, to make sure they set up meetings. So I believe that it's very important to have those conversations with, and usually the board president has it with the CED, with the person that has nominated themselves. You not just allow them to nominate themselves or someone be nominated. And even when the committee selects, or in our case, when they selected the slate, I believe that they also had like a backup to have for the next meeting. Like if the person says, no, I can't, I'm busy. They also, if I'm not mistaken, I wasn't there because I'm the president, so I'm not on the committee. I believe they had a backup person for in the event that a business partner or a homeowner leader did not want to accept for whatever reasons. And
Sure.
that moves it along so that you don't have to have another meeting. You already know
Yeah.
this is who we think, this is second, not second choice, but based on point system and whatever it is that we have there. So I think that's an important conversation to have even with the slate that's selected by the nominating committee. And
Yeah,
we've
that's a
had
very good
her,
point.
so yeah. And usually our chapter executive director sets that up for us.
Yeah.
And then, Crystal, I'm just going to jump in with one last
Sure.
point around the election process. Is I also think it's really important that there's outreach to those who don't make it onto the board of either if they didn't meet the criteria, what are the things that they need to start to get in place so that they do start to meet those criterias? Or if it is an election and, I've seen this multiple times, there's one spot open and there's 5 people on the ballot and they're like, oh, I did this 2 years ago and I still didn't make it. That making sure they still have a place within CAI, the volunteer world, that if they're willing to share their leadership, I think it's really important not to just have them push aside or don't acknowledge that welcoming to them. So if that's not taking place, that post outreach, I definitely recommend, adding
Point.
that as a part of the process because I think it goes a long way. At the end of the day, we're a membership organization and we're all members. And so, let's make sure that we're showcasing that and that respect for each other.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kelly. Thank you. Dana.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, guys. I just live and breathe elections because that's my business, electronic voting, elections for 20 years. So sorry. That's my passion in life. So I agree with you, Kelly, and we do that because throughout the year we will have members that say, Diana, I really want to get on the board, or I haven't been able. I had one member who's actually a member of our slate this year on the nominating committee who has supported our chapter for years, was involved in the Washington or New Jersey chapter. I can't remember which of the two, sorry, for years before coming here. And he said to me, Diana, I never make it. I haven't made it yet. I go, well, who did you tell? And he goes, oh, I've told previous board members. I'm like, okay, but guess what? How about you just start fresh? If you'd like to be selected on the slate, if you'd like to look into leadership, we encourage you, get involved, get on a committee. You meet all these other criteria, but you still need to chair a committee. You'll need to do this. So he has put himself on a committee for next year. He is on the slate for the he's the nominating committee this year, and he now knows what he needs to do to try to get him to move up in leadership. So it's a great way to get leadership and committed chairpersons and committee members for you as well. So you utilize that as a great opportunity so they understand that it's nothing, it's strictly done by a very subjective procedure that's outlined, that a little SOP that we have, so they understand that's how it's done, and nobody's feelings get hurt, and they know what they need to do to get on the board, or is working their way up. Not working doesn't mean you have to work for years. It just means do these things, understand CAI.
Yeah.
We need you to understand CAI. We need you to go to a conference if you can. And they did. These people have done it. So it really helps. They understand what CAI is about. They learn the different the benefits and the membership types and everything. So it's actually a good selling point for retention and for future leadership.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. What about quorum? Anybody have trouble making quorum? Does everybody know what their quorum is? That's also in your bylaws. You might want to check that. Okay.
Here's with it. I have my bylaws on my desk somewhere in a binder, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah. So, on the off chance that you don't make quorum, I think, most of our chapters are pretty good at making that. But if you're not, is making sure that you follow that process in the bylaws to reopen your election through that. I had one other thought that I had there. Oh, when you do your elections, are you doing them, are you announcing them like at an annual meeting or like how are you promoting like who is actually now a board member
You're talking about
They're,
after the election?
after the election? Yep.
they're
Oh,
announced at our annual meeting at our conference.
Okay.
annual meeting, social media, email.
Yep.
The award ceremony, the holiday party, we always like, I know I've gone to several of them throughout for Florida, and they usually will, introduce the board at the events, the final events of the year, because most of our elections are in November and October here. I don't know about
Yeah.
everywhere else. So
Yeah,
I,
I'd say October, November generally, but I know we had somebody on here that said July. I think Shannon said July is their term, and so there are definitely some differences too.
Yeah, so our conference is in March, and that's where the nominating committee I think meets in November, December, and then they put out their slate, and then if you want to do the petition to get on the ballot, you have until I think like January 30th or something.
Got it. Okay.
Our elections take place in January at the annual meeting for South Gulf
Okay.
Coast.
I did see one chapter they did almost like a flyer in their newsletter. So it had everyone's pictures on it, but it had a little bit of a description so that people had an understanding of who they were, and they kind of asked for a personal piece, so it just wasn't professional. Like, oh yeah, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? Type of
Mhm.
introduction to people. And
That's
so
fun.
that might be something to think of too, of bringing that funness back to your board. And not everyone comes to all of your in-person events. Not everyone might click on that page on your website. So I know newsletters are huge for all of the chapters. So even if it's halfway through the year, hey, reminder, we're here and here's a little bit about ourselves. But
Mhm.
in that funness of it. So don't forget to bring some fun into it, and that might help people also go, "Hey, I want to be a part of that group. Like they look like a
Yeah.
good group. They look
Mhm.
interesting." And so that might help with that as well.
I think after our elections too, we do on socials a board member spotlight. So just one board member at a
Yeah, I
time,
like it.
Hmm.
and bringing some funness into that, little personal tidbit about them as well as their professional connection to the chapter.
We do the same thing with especially the new ones that haven't been on the board previously, just so people can get to know them on socials, and then a spread in the next magazine issue. So we kind of assign that to the publications committee to handle that as well.
Great.
And if it's people that have rolled over, like they've been on the board for a couple of years, so every day everyone knows who they are, like Wendy, everybody knows who they are. You do a little known fact or something a
Yeah.
little more fun to pull them in.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Okay. Any other questions on elections, nominations, any of that process coming up?
Mm-mm.
What about anything else? Anything else that you thought of while we were chatting that you wanna ask this group?
Side question related is a note somebody put in the chapter or in the chat. I'm a board member in California. I'm a member in Hawaii, but obviously I don't live in Hawaii. I live in California. Would I even be allowed to run for that board if I'm not a resident of the state? Not that
Yes.
I would, but I was
Yes.
just curious.
Yes, we actually, especially in the situation, like think about we have national corporate members that have
Yeah.
people all over the country, and yet, and like I'm thinking like some of our chapters that the borders are pretty close, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
if you like, lived in Nevada, you could still serve on, another board, but even with, especially with the remote thing too.
Mhm.
We do have people that are serving in other places. The one thing that I would say though is, often with those situations, you want to look at the requirements for the board members to attend because I feel very strongly that it's important that board members are seen, not just at a board meeting, but, at activities and that kind of thing. So if you did have that situation, I would, have a conversation with that person about visibility and whatnot.
I probably never would. I was just curious.
Well, may give you a reason to go to Hawaii more often. I'm just saying.
I mean, that'll work.
And certain situations, for example, I know Hawaii does a lot of virtual education because
Right.
of the off islands and things like that. So in that
And multiple
situation,
islands.
right. And so again, in the situation with the chapter, it might be good because, hey, we need someone from that virtual attendance and to still be on and have that presence or facilitate to get you there. So I very strongly echo Crystal's piece of making sure that you're having that communication if that's ever an interest. Because I know some, especially up in the Midwest, we've got people that are the snowbirds and then they'll head down south. And so making sure that there's a virtual option available for the board meetings during those moments in time. Or is that not an option? And so maybe you're not a good fit because of some of the barriers. So I think it's really important to just have that conversation and perspective.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I just wanted to bring up that for board meetings, I think it's very important for those of us who do our Zoom board meetings, because we found, we just do our board meetings on Zoom so that all the members can attend, since we have chairs that service, live in different parts of Florida and are members of our chapter. And like one of our not every board member lives in Broward or Dade County or Monroe. Even if they did in Monroe County for us, that's the keys. So they would not be able to get to our meetings. So we decided to host them on Zoom, and they're great. But I think it's important for the board member to be present as well by having their picture up and being live on the board meeting, since we're not having them in person. I think that's very important so that there's they get to know you. You're supporting the chapter and you're present. And so we have that here at our chapter words. Our board members are usually all on. It's great. We have great participation, and then we each take roles in helping. So right now we're doing the Venezuelan relief with our chapter and two business partners. So, and different board members are assisting with this project. So I think it's important to be present in person and even on Zoom if you're holding board meetings on Zoom.
Agreed. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other questions today, we'll let you hopefully get started with your weekend shortly.
I've actually got a couple just
Oh,
updates,
okay.
reminders, some
Okay.
housekeeping pieces. Just a reminder, we do have at the end of this month a webinar about the LAC nominations process and everything. So if this is especially your first time going through it, please come to that. We are recording it. If you're unable to make it and you do have any questions, please let us know so we can connect you with our government and public affairs team. I know they're working through questions regarding that or terms of your nominations process. Again, that does need to be approved at a board meeting. So again, highly recommend coming to that session. Feel free to invite anyone else from your board who is interested in that. Again, we've sent that out to you and your chapter executive directors. So please do that. We're also holding a session with our CFO in August around budgeting, some tips and tricks. John Seckel, who is our CFO, is amazing. He puts it in terms that are very easy to understand. I see Joyce nodding her head. He worked through this with our board of trustees, and I think it went really smoothly. So he's
Very
got
good.
some great. So he's got some great tips. Again, we'll be recording that as well because we know budget conversations are definitely going to be starting, especially for our larger chapters. They've probably already gotten started with getting that research done with your committees and feedback there. But Also, with that session, again, if you want to invite your treasurers to that or any of your board members, again, that's open. Please do that. Again, we'll be recording it. So if you want to share the recording out as well, it's going to be a short presentation and then time for questions. So again, even if you can't come and you do have a question or you think of something last minute, please let us know so that we can get that asked during it and that we can share that recording. So those are just two things that are coming up. Kind of, they're going to be here before we know it, and just want to make sure that those are on your radar as well. And we'll have a reminder for both of those sessions in that weekly email that Lawrence had referenced in the chat that that we'll be sending out later this afternoon.
Great.
That was it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say something, Crystal? It's about you.
About me. Oh no.
Yes, I have to tell you that your post touched my heart
Oh,
about leadership and about owning up to decisions that we make that may not have been the best decision, but we thought it was at the time, or we made an executive decision. Again, we use that business judgment rule in our world and in our personal life, our business life, our HOA world, whatever we're in as president. So I really thank you for that. That was a great post.
oh,
And
thank you. For
kudos to your
those of you who
daughter.
are interested, I put a post on LinkedIn about leadership lessons from my 12-year-old goalkeeper. And so feel free to go read, and maybe it'll provide you some insights. My biggest lesson learned from that was sometimes we forget to listen to the things that we teach our children. Because I was like, oh, I taught you that, but I'm not listening to that very well until you've parroted it back to me. So yeah, it's just it translated my brain. I was like, I feel like other people should hear this. So thank you for bringing that up, Dana. I appreciate it. All right, very good. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you have some great summer plans, and we'll hopefully see you all online next month. Reach out if you need anything in between. We're happy to help, and we'll talk to you real soon. Okay, bye
Thank
guys.
you. Appreciate it so much.